Good morning and welcome to the back roads between Kirkintilloch and Twecker, and what you can see behind me is fog. It is clearly winter. It's -3, it's freezing fog, it's all round us, and I can't see any of the animals, and I certainly can't see any of the countryside, but it is very picturesque. Or is it? Is it the time when the witches are going to appear upon the heath for Macbeth? Or is it the time that it's a pea super where Victorian London or out on the Exmoor Heath with the Hound of the Baskervilles? It's very atmospheric, it's very Christmassy, it's very December, and it's Scotland. So, the week past, a lot of stuff has happened. Kieran has been down in London performing in pop music, which has been recorded and will go out, we believe, on a platform somewhere on Tinternet. I know Ricky is either already out there or he's about to go out to Jersey to be in the first professional panto out there, and it is panto time, and I'm not going to be doing much by way of reviewing between now and the end of the year, if any at all. It's panto season. Panto is not my favourite thing, so there's going to be little of that at all, but I know that a number of my pals and friends, I know that Bex has got Peter Pan down in Ardrossan with Billy Kirkwood and the gang and Russell Coyd. So lots of preparations, lots of rehearsals, and lots of great stuff to go and see. And also down in the Gaiety, first time for a long time, Gaiety are producing their own panto, which has got lots of positives and some criticisms as well. So at the weekend, last night, boxing in Monaco. The one that really stands out is Cecilia Breckhouse, a woman who's 38 years old, Norwegian. She is the unified world champion at her weight, somewhat bigger than Katie Taylor, and the match between Katie Taylor and Breckhouse, who got her 36th straight win, and there are absolutely no defeats in that professional record in Monaco against a fairly doughty fighter. Problem with women's boxing is that in some weight divisions there's a difficulty in getting real opposition. So there is an argument that Breckhouse is a padded record. No, she's taken everybody on and she's beaten them handsomely and hands down. Only 9 knockouts, gone the distance over, 27 fights, which is particularly impressive. Taylor would have to come up, Breckhouse would have to go down in weight, and that whole thing to do with weight is an interesting one. We had a world title fight at the weekend called off because Andres Gutierrez turned up 11 pounds over the limit. He would have been over the limit for the next weight division and the weight division above that, and he was stripped of the opportunity to fight for the title. You've got to wonder why it is. He actually put on, I believe, it's either 9 pounds over 7 days or 7 pounds over 9 days, because they had weighed him about a week or so before the fight, and he'd been on target. Wow. So, as well as the atmosphere, Christmas is a difficult time for those who struggle with alcohol and any form of addiction. So a wee thought, alcohol particularly is an insidious disease. In Scotland we now have, for addicts, the beginning of a change in terms of how we look at services for addicts, and there's colloquially something, I believe it's called a shooting gallery, where people can take heroin in Glasgow in a safe environment, and for many that seems to be encouragement. It's not. It's about dealing with addiction as a particular illness, and it's run through the National Health Service, and what we have is people doing good work, nurses doing good work to attempt to allow and help addicts get back on their feet, and hopefully with the changes that may come politically, what we're able to do is take the type of policy into our own hands that will allow us to decriminalise drugs, which is the Scottish National Party's policy, because by so doing, what we are able to do is start to treat addiction not as a criminal offence, but as an illness. Now, at this point, one of the things that does happen is that people who are struggling, having a bit of a difficulty with a relationship issue or something else, find themselves after 2 or 3 days having spent a whole load of money not sure where it's gone, and often that's to do with alcohol, food, things you do when you've had a wee drink and all the rest of it. It doesn't mean that they're addicts. What it means is that at this period of time, much though it's filled with joy and laughter and all the rest of it, not for everybody. So keep a wee eye out for those people who may be dealing with something different. It came to my mind this week simply because it's been a bad week for loads of celebrities, and there's 3 celebrities in particular who I had not an affinity with. They're in areas which part of my childhood, part of things that I remember particularly well. And it was one of them, Gary Rhodes, chef, who was out in Dubai, I think it was, where he died out in that Gulf state. And a number of people got on the internet and suggested that there was this reason, that reason, and the family were forced to put out a denial that it was anything other than just an appalling, dreadful tragedy. And I believe he slipped, fell, hit his head, and then died, which is just appalling. Rhodes was a chef who I took a lot from. Spiky hair, no, none of that, but had a very different approach to British cuisine. Real celebrity personality that went well in a karma. Took over MasterChef after Lloyd Grossman had cogitated and digested for the last time. He only ran it for 1 series before it then morphed into what was going to become what it is now, which is a much better series than it was years and years ago. But tragic. Then from that shot, one that we expected, a couple that we probably did expect. One, Clive James, the Australian who lived in Cambridge, was a poet, a critic, a writer, a raconteur, a man of letters, a man of many words, a man who probably could have taught Jacob Rees-Mogg English had Jacob Rees-Mogg been able to achieve that kind of standard. Particularly during the late 80s, early 90s, I think it was, he had Clive James on TV, which was a kind of a late night thing, and Margherita Praketan was the plucked from obscurity novelty act at the end of it, who incredible, absolutely incredible, and you'd stay up late to see it. It was just hilarious, and it was part of being a grown up, but also being between growing up and being somebody who could afford their own mortgage. So sorry to see him go. 80 odd years old, had a very good innings and very, very brave in terms of how he dealt with his final illness. And I saw an interview with him about a month or so ago as he was in the final stages of his life, talking about, I know this is the end. Another guy who's a Scottish guy who recently died, Kenneth Roy, he also, towards the end of his life, wrote a book which you can get through the Scottish Review website, which was, he's a well-known Scottish writer, well-known Scottish journalist, and when he was diagnosed with cancer and he ended up in the last month or so of his life, he found that it allowed him to write in a way that he hadn't written before, and he created a book out of it, and by all accounts, fantastic. So, the third, Jonathan Miller, a real doctor, who was part of the Cambridge Footlights, who transcended medicine and science into the arts and became a theatre and opera director and did some exceptional work. Again in his 80s, never really recognised, I don't think, for what he actually achieved and the changes that he made, but hopefully now that he has passed on, people will do some kind of retrospective. Now, the death of all these people and also the birth of an election campaign, maybe odd bedfellows because they are, but it's been about celebrity in many ways over the last week or so. People refusing to go on head-to-head debates, people not going on Channel 4's this or going on BBC's that, and so on. We have a very strange set of circumstances. We have an issue. I said this a few weeks ago that I felt really sorry for England because of the choices that they had. I feel even more sorry for them now. It looks as though, according to some opinion polls, that the Conservative Party are going to walk away with this election and have something like a majority in the 60s or 70s. I don't get it and I don't understand it. Fact is that when you have people who suggest that there are going to be 50,000 new nurses, including 19,000 nurses that are already there, you know you're in a bizarre place. Sense has gone out the window. But the issue is that there's a lack of an alternative in England. In Wales, Plaid Cymru. In Northern Ireland, it's its usual different election. In Scotland, the Scottish National Party have 35 out of 53 seats. They are in line, apparently, to go back to the 2015 levels, where 50 of 53 Scottish members of Parliament were Scottish nationalists. And yet people tell us that there is no mandate for a second referendum, no mandate for Scottish independence. What does it take? We've had 10 years of a Scottish National Party government. We've had 10 years of an SNP government, and both Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon were the most popular leaders that this country, as in Scotland, has ever had. And yet I see a Facebook page that says, that says that Nicola Sturgeon is less popular than Margaret Thatcher was. You never lived in the 80s, if you think that. But down in England, if the Conservative Party is able to get from where it is to have over 60 seats census leftist, because they have lied, they have not answered the questions that are asked, and the probable reason is the lack of alternatives. And I am standing in the constituency of one of the members of Parliament that are currently attempting to become Prime Minister, Jo Swinson, a woman who has said that she will have no hesitation in pressing the nuclear button, in a constituency that sits next to Fastlane, where if there is a nuclear war, most of us will be wiped out, and she, summarily, without a thought, is quite prepared to see us all die. And that's one of the reasons why people in this constituency are beginning to talk about she seems more interested in becoming Prime Minister than becoming my MP. She has a small majority of just over 5,000, as indeed Boris Johnson has a small majority. There are many, many big names in English and British politics that are currently sitting with small majorities. So to win over 60 seats, the Conservative Party has to potentially retain the 13 they have in Scotland, win another 70 or 80 seats from Labour, who would have to have a disaster. They're currently sitting, I believe it's somewhere like 280, so they would have to lose something like 25%. There are Liberal Democrat seats that could go, but there's only 13 of them. Or is it 8? Or is it 9? There's not enough. And yet, there may be a landslide because they want to get Brexit done. It's puzzling. But if it isn't going to be Jo Swinson, it's going to be Jeremy Corbyn, a man whose handling of the anti-Semitic processes in the Labour Party have been less than sanguine, less than transparent, less than effective. It is a real watershed moment, and when you look across and you see the Americans potentially going to be giving Donald Trump a second term, you begin to think maybe we're not the worst off. And again, maybe we are. Tethered to a tombstone which is the Union of the United Kingdom and Great Britain, perhaps it is finally time. Many of us who believe in Scottish independence certainly believe that. This time next week, it'll be 3 or 4 days before the election, and in 2 weeks' time we will know who the next government of the United Kingdom and the British Isles might be. Till then, till next week at least, bye for now.